We are the organizers of the TEDx Dos Pueblos High School Youth event, and we're going to start off with a little bit about us and the creation of this event.
So, again, my name is Sienna. I'm the co editor in chief of the yearbook team, a copy editor on the Charger account, and I'm also on the varsity mock trial team.
I'm Amelia. I'm also co-editor in chief of Yearbook with Sienna, and I love getting involved in the community. So I work with various organizations like the Santa Barbara Youth Council to create change in Santa Barbara. If there's one thing that you should know about Sienna and I, it's that we always love to have a project to work on. Earlier this year, about in March, Sienna told me we needed something new to do because we didn't have enough to do already. So I did some research of really just some random Google searches and discovered that you can actually host your own TEDx event by applying for a license. I texted Sienna that I had an idea, and they said, "What do you want from In-N-Out? I'll be at your house in an hour." Once we had our fries, we started brainstorming what we wanted this event to look like, and we created our theme.
So, the theme of our event is the youth impact, which means that we are empowering youth to create change in their communities through small actions, innovative ideas, and collaboration. So, today you're going to hear about issues that are facing our youth, what people are doing to address these issues, and most importantly, what you can do to also help your community. So, we wanted all of you to hear about how you can impact your community from your own peers while also giving them a platform to elevate their voices.
And without further ado, one more announcement, sorry. A couple of today's speakers will be touching on some sensitive topics surrounding mental health. So just know the DP counseling team is always available to talk with any students who want to discuss anything further after hearing these speeches. And there are mental health resources available on the DP counseling website. And with that, please welcome our first speaker, Andy Brennan.
Hello, my name is Andy Brennan. I'm a senior at Dos Pueblos High School, and the first thing you need to know about me is that I am a runner. In fact, I've always been a runner. Before I had ever raced, before I knew what cross country was, I have been a runner. Growing up, I did youth sports, but really, I just hid my running behind a ball. In baseball, occasionally I would hit or pitch the ball, but my main positions were being an outfielder and a pinch runner. In soccer, I played midfield, which if you don't know is the position where you basically run laps of the field and pass the ball to other people to actually score the ball. And my third sport was basketball. Now, I was horrible at basketball, but at the end of every play, I would sprint to the other side of the court and be the first one there. And that effort I put in was my greatest skill. I was always told to give 110% effort, and so that's what I did, every time. And not just in sports, but in every aspect of my life. In memorizing lines for theater, in my classwork, in my friendships, I always gave my best. Fast forward to high school, and I'm in cross country, putting those strengths to good use. To any onlooker, it would look like everything was amazing. I was on varsity, running fast times, and just look at that focus. But just below the surface are some things I think we're all familiar with. Pressure, stress, and at the time my greatest enemy, performance anxiety. Everything in my life could be amazing, but if there was a race coming up, all of a sudden there was this looming cloud over me that was numbing every positive aspect of my life. It was something I'd never felt before, this inexplicable feeling that something was wrong, that I was going to fail far before I even had the chance to try. My internal dialogue was, don't eat, you'll get nauseous. You should drop out now before your race starts. You are going to lose your spot on varsity because you are weak. Raise of hands, does that sound familiar to anyone? If you look around, you'll see that you are not alone. But it's really hard not to feel that way. These thoughts are so common among teens, but all they do is limit us. Once my races were over, I was happy again and I could smile. But getting to that starting line was nearly impossible. I'm quite an introspective person, and so I decided to break down my anxiety into two things that I could work on conquering. Two factors that, if I could just get over, would relieve me of all this stress I was feeling. And I invite you to join me in this. and think about your own stressors to pinpoint for yourself what, if you could change, would make you feel better. For me, the first step was identifying the unknown. What or who is putting this weight on me? What is the mental barrier that is manifesting itself in this physical sensation, like spaciness and vomiting? And two, what tools do I have to deal with my anxiety? What can I do to counteract it and put my strong emotions towards something positive? The latter idea ended up becoming the key to my success, and it involves tools we all have access to right now. Art, creating, using that building energy and putting it towards something physical, using the time it took to make that art to relax and take a breath, free from the things that worry us. You may be thinking to yourself, art? Andy, big whoop. Was all that build-up really necessary to tell us to draw a little? And my honest answer is yes, but it's not that simple. Since using art as a therapeutic tool, I've been able to completely eliminate my pre-race anxiety, and I've never again thrown up before a race. But like any other skill, you have to practice it before you can see the benefits. It took me time to figure out what worked best for me. But using art is something you can start today. I want you to identify one thing in your life that is putting weight on you. It could be an upcoming event, a deadline like a college app, a hard class, or anything else that is giving you anxiety. Close your eyes. I want you to feel that strong emotion for 1 second and then visualize it going away. You can join me back. Open your eyes. Take a breath. The reason I had you do this is because the first step to reclaiming a life of normalcy is to practice forgetting what is going on in your life, separating yourself from the stressful events. We are all guilty of ruminating on the most difficult parts of our life, so much so that it overshadows everything else. But this unhealthy process of ours only limits us, and it locks your brain into an extended period of fight or flight where you are literally chemically on edge. Over and over, your brain is replaying your stress, searching for a solution or an answer that would make you feel better. But it only worsens how you feel. And so, we need to figure out ways to deal with this. To counteract it, you need to take time out of your day to do something else and completely separate yourself from the harmful event. Spend time doing something you both enjoy and where you get to make something. And that word make really is the key. You could do crocheting, doodling, sculpting, knitting, wood burning, journaling, or a million other things. But the baseline is doing something physical gives your brain that sense of completion and productiveness that it's searching for. The only rule I have for you is that you have to have fun, and you have to be able to relax. Art is not a chore and shouldn't feel like one. Sometimes I'll put a movie on in the background or listen to one of my favorite albums. And sometimes I won't realize that my phone's been dead for the past hour, and I've actually just been hallucinating my favorite songs over and over again in my head while crafting away. But that's the beauty of art. Finding something that you can get lost in is a life-altering tool, and I know it can help you the same way it helped me. In cross country, we have a saying that goes, the most important night for sleep is 2 nights before your race. Runners know that the night before a big event like a meet, it's almost impossible to relax the way we normally do, and even sleep. But since using art, I have been able to reclaim those nights and go back to the normalcy I had before I ever felt the pressure to perform. I truly owe everything to art for keeping me grounded and giving me an escape. I hope if you take one thing away from today, it is that anxiety is temporary. And if you can't necessarily change your life, but you can change how you experience it. You can escape, you can relax, and with art, you can take control of your life again. Thank you. Please welcome up our next speaker, Joy Shia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joy Xie, and today I'll be talking about from WUGs to clubs. What are WUGs and why you should start a club? So I'd like to start off my speech with a quick poll. Raise your hand if you've ever taken a language class, either through school or SBCC. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Now, keep your hands up if you're only doing so because your parents told you so or because it's for required credits. Yeah, so my first experience with language is probably similar to most of you people's here. I started off pursuing my required foreign language credits through SBCC's Spanish 101, 102, and 103. I'd spend my Friday evenings copying down the week's worth of vocabulary lists. And if you've ever taken an SBCC's language class, you'll also know the feeling of hand cramps that came with it. So I didn't like it. And I thought I would never like language. That is until I discovered linguistics. So during my sophomore year, a family friend told me about these linguistics competitions where you're given some language problems to solve within an allotted period of time. So I Googled a few of these and they were really fun, turning the previously tedious memorization I thought language was into an interactive puzzle. But it's hard to describe these puzzles without actually seeing one. So let's do one right now. I've adapted a problem from the North American Computational Linguistics Open Competition. The language here is Malagasy, which is spoken mainly in Madagascar. Now, most of you have likely never heard of this language, but that's expected, because the problem writers try to choose languages that contestants don't already have any background information on. And there are a lot of things you can figure out about Malagasy just from these 5 example sentences alone, like sentence structure, word order, how to form the past tense. But for the sake of time, let's do something simple. So, what's a word for tortoise in Malagasy? The last 2 sentences are the only sentences that have any mention of tortoise. And if you look at them, you'll see that they share 2 words in common, which I've highlighted in blue and purple. However, the blue word appears in all the sentences, even the ones without any mention of tortoise. So we can conclude that the purple word is the one that means tortoise. Well, anyway, I looked up a few of these language puzzles, and I enjoyed them, so I shared them with my friends, who also enjoyed them. But I'm not sure if I would have created a linguistics club right then. Except the next day, my friends were waiting for me with a full list of names. They'd gone and told everyone about this linguistics club I was supposedly going to make, and even promised candy for everyone who put their names down. So you see, I had no choice but to make a linguistics club, and no choice but to buy a giant bag of candy. So, and now I've realized that I haven't really told you what linguistics means. So let's do a quick interlude. What is linguistics? Well, linguistics is the study of languages in general. And that's quite different from studying, say, a single language, like French or Spanish. Because as a linguist, you'd study the overarching patterns of language as a whole. So let me give a few examples. You could study the field of phonetics, which has to do with how we humans make sounds in our mouths. Let's do a quick experiment. Say the words potato and circus normally, how you would say them in a sentence. Yeah, thanks for the engagement, guys. So, what if I told you that they have the same vowel? Now, in writing, they don't appear to share any vowels in common. But if you say them out loud, you can hear the same sound in potato and circus. This sound is called the schwa, and it's a default sound that in English where your tongue goes to for an unstressed syllable. You could also study the field of child language acquisition, which has to do with how children learn languages. So let's do another quick experiment. What's a plural of wug? A wug is this guy right here. And don't worry if you've never even heard of a wug, just go with your instinct. Yeah, exactly. So even if you haven't seen this word before, you'll likely say wugs because you've seen enough English words to know that most plurals in English are formed by just tacking that S on the end. But at what age do children notice this pattern? That was the premise of the famous Wug test experiment by Jean Berko-Gleason. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what linguistics is. And back to Linguistics Club. It started off small, with just a few people, and none of us, myself included, knew much about linguistics at first. But more people joined, and we learned together. Each week, I put together presentations on different topics in linguistics. And because I'm a visual learner, to make them more fun and engaging, I added a lot of fun drawings and interactive activities, some of which you've seen in my slides today. And through these presentations, I realized that any academic subject can be made engaging and fun. I know it must sound cheesy, but learning is important. It's a path to your future career and happiness. But I also know that it can sometimes feel tedious. Like, say you're in that geometry class and wondering how all of these shapes will ever be useful in your future. So that's when you put your own twist on it. If you enjoy origami, for example, you can think about how those shapes that you're learning about can inspire your next creation. Because learning is fundamentally a personal journey. So don't be afraid to make it just that, personal. And after 2 years of founding my own club, it's something I look forward to every week. For me, it was very rewarding because I got to see the community that I helped start and take off. Take off and grow. My club members and I went from complete linguistics noobs to absolute linguistics nerds. And the people were the best part of it. Today, they've become some of my best friends, and they've allowed me to appreciate our diversity. Because the people in my club are what make it come alive. Each meeting is a chance to learn from one another. And just as language can't exist without people to speak it, Linguistics Club can't exist without its members. And similarly, clubs on campus can't exist without all of you. As a former clubs commissioner for the Dos Pueblos leadership class, I may be biased, but one of the best things about DP is its vibrant club community. Here you can find clubs for almost every interest, from art to public speaking and beyond. And even if none of your interests are represented in the clubs at DP, you can easily make your own. So I hope my journey with Linguistics Club can inspire all of you to seek out communities of your own, whether you're a freshman who hasn't found your niche yet, or a senior passionate about the activities you love. Because everyone has their own unique interests and talents. And finding a community that shares those passions in high school can transform your high school journey into something truly fulfilling. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So before we begin, I've just been informed by the tech people that they're having a small issue with the speakers. So we're just going to take the first minute to help them resolve this issue. They're going to be playing a high frequency pitch or sound of some sort for like the first 10 seconds just to test the equipment. And they want to know if you guys are able to hear it. So just raise your hand when we play it so that we know that we're good to go. Okay. Wilson, are you ready? Okay. We're going to go. We're going to play it in 3, 2, 1. Great. Thank you all so much. Now, if you heard the sound and raised your hand previously, can you please raise it up again? Now, hold your hand up, and I want you to look around you. That's just about everyone in this audience with their hands up. But here's the thing. No sound was ever played. So just take a moment and think to yourself, why did you raise your hand? That is social influence. Social influence is defined as any change in an individual's thoughts, feelings, or behaviors caused by other people. We've all fallen victim to it. For instance, when I was growing up, I was friends with a big group of pretty white girls. And my thought was, if I want to be pretty, and if I want to fit in, and if I want to be seen as more white, then I should be a blonde. Because obviously, that is the only reasonable conclusion that I could have made. I have brown eyes, they have blue eyes, can't really fix that. But hair, I can just bleach hair. So I did, and I should not be a blonde. Ever. This decision, while seemingly trivial, illustrates a broader truth about human behavior. It's that we often conform to those around us. There have been multitudes of social experiments that have been done to try to understand human behavior and why we give into social conformity. One of the most famous of these experiments was conducted by psychologist Solomon Asch in the 1950s. This study is best known as the line conformity experiment. The task was simple. Participants were asked to compare the lengths of line X against lines A, B, and C, and to choose the correct corresponding line length. Now the answer is obvious. The correct line length is line C. So if the task was so simple, and if the answer was so obvious, then surely participants would give the correct answer, right? Wrong. So here's where the twist came in. The participants were surrounded by a group of actors, if you will, who were instructed to give the wrong answer. So as the experimenter went down the line of people asking for the correct answer, every actor confidently declared that the correct answer was, in fact, line A. And because of this, despite knowing the correct answer, a significant number of the participants also agreed that the matching line was line A. Now, looking at this experiment, most everyone thinks, myself included, gosh, that is stupid. Because I know the correct answer, so I would stick to the correct answer. Honestly, when I first heard this experiment, I thought it was so ridiculous, because why would anyone fall for that? But that's the really interesting thing about human nature, is that we're all aware that peer pressure exists, but we all believe we're immune to it. So if this is you, I want you to challenge that belief. Because much like Ash's experiment, where the participants knew the correct answer but went along with the group, many of you raised your hand when no sound was played. And this wasn't because majority of you truly hallucinated a silent ringing sound. It was because you saw other people's hands go up, the actors I placed in the crowd, and felt the need to fit in. We have an innate desire to feel accepted and liked by others, and we often fear social rejection if we deviate from the group. And this phenomenon drives us to align our behaviors and opinions with the majority, even if we privately disagree. And although seeing others raise their hands played a major role in your decision to raise your own, there was another factor at play. So this brings us to Stanley Milgram's obedience experiment. While Ash's experiment dealt with peer pressure, Milgram wanted to see just how far people would go when following orders from an authority figure. The participants were instructed to administer what they thought were painful electric shocks to the learner as instructed by the experimenter. In reality, though, these shocks did absolutely nothing because, ethics. But despite hearing cries of pain, most participants continued delivering shocks of increasing voltage, simply because an authoritative figure, the experimenter, told them to do so. And while the objective of this experiment was to test how far people would go to obey authority, even when it involved causing harm, what made people so willing to obey? So I want you to consider the environment. Milgram's experiment was conducted at Yale, a prestigious institution with an authoritative figure in a professional lab coat. Participants believed that they were taking part in important scientific research, which, to their credit, they were, just not the research they thought they were taking part in. This setting made the participants feel like they were a part of something credible, which justified their obedience. And this is implicit influence. Implicit influence is the subconscious impact of feelings, hidden biases, and attitudes that shape our decisions and behaviors without us even realizing it. Even the lab coat that Milgram had the experimenter wear was gray instead of white, as to assert authority without triggering the usual associations of medical and scientific expertise. Just as the environment in Milgram's experience influenced behavior, the seemingly professional setting here likely contributed to your willingness to go along with the crowd. In the beginning, when I introduced the supposed technical issue, asking you all to raise your hands if you heard a high-frequency sound, I stood here in a microphone, in an uncomfortable outfit, the TEDx logo behind me, a spotlight literally shining down on me as I was elevated above you. And this made me appear to have authority. This facade all acted as a means to legitimize what I was saying, and that sense of trust influenced your actions in ways you might have not otherwise considered. Think about that. You didn't just trust the situation, you trusted me. The stage, the microphone, the TEDx, the actors I placed in the audience, and the way that I presented myself. It all gave me influence over your actions. It made it just that much easier to believe me, even though everything I was saying was a lie. And I'm not telling you this to help you have greater influence or to become a politician or to develop trust issues. I am telling you this because it is important to understand what drives our behavior. So let's just take a moment to reflect on what happened here today. You participated in an experiment where no sound was played, yet many of you raised your hands. Why? Because of the influence of those around you, the authority I appear to hold, and the environment we were in. These invisible forces of social conformity and compliance shape our behavior more than we realize. And this is the essence of herd mentality, the tendency to follow the behaviors and beliefs of the larger group without stopping to question them, all in pursuit of acceptance and belonging. It's why you raised your hand, and it's why I was a blonde. But we often think that we're making decisions independently. But studies like the ones conducted by Ash and Milgram, and even the experiment you participated in here today, that you did not know you were participating in, and for that I apologize, but these experiments show us that we are far more susceptible to the pressures of others than we'd like to admit. Whether it's the desire to fit in or the urge to follow orders from someone that seems to know better, we can find ourselves making choices we might not otherwise usually make. But understanding these forces gives us the power to question them and to become aware of why we may be behaving the way that we are. When we recognize how easily we can be influenced, it allows us the ability to make more conscious, more deliberate choices we actually want to make. Because at the end of the day, you are still entirely responsible for your own behavior. Thank you.
And with that, we are introducing Sabrina Volio. One more round of applause.
Do you want to die? That's what my dad said to me as I sat on the floor of my bedroom, crying. Hi, my name is Sabrina Elizabeth Avolio, and I'm a 14-year-old freshman here at Dos Pueblos. Today, I'm here to talk to you about eating disorders. I hated my body at 6 years old. I can't tell you why exactly. It's almost like I was born hating my reflection. And after hating myself so much for so long, I decided that the issue was my body. So there I was, 11 years old, skipping meals, taking diuretics, dieting, doing everything I could to be smaller. It didn't take long for me to lose a couple of pounds and to feel my jeans getting looser. And when I saw the numbers on the scale go down, I brought the number of calories down because I liked what I saw, but I wanted it more and I wanted it faster. Eating less only made me feel worse. I hated school at Goleta Valley Junior High so much that not even halfway through my 7th grade year, I left. I transferred to Trivium Charter School, where I only had to go on campus 2 days a week. And the rest of the time, I could be at home, where no one was watching me. Life got busy. I was alone most of my day, and I ate alone all the time. So there was no one to stop me from falling into the addictive, restrictive cycle of tracking calories. Weighing out everything I ate, I was attached to my food scale like it was my lifeline. Refusing to eat except at specific times, there was no one to stop me from working out every single day for hours and hours on end. And then suddenly there was. Because when I lost all my personality, ability to eat, when I stopped talking to my friends, when I lost my period, when my clothes stopped fitting and lost so much weight so quickly that I looked gaunt, when I was complaining about getting dizzy all the time and being freezing cold, sleeping 12 plus hours a day, my parents knew something was really wrong. So they took me to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, a restrictive eating disorder. It took a few months, but I was eventually put in an intensive outpatient program with family-based treatment. That meant that I was on a meal plan, and everything I ate was cooked and given to me by my parents. I had no control. I couldn't exercise because at the time, it wasn't safe for me. I was also in a course over the summer between 7th and 8th grade where I spent time in 9 hours of classes a week. I received intensive therapy with multiple therapists and 1 or 2 other teenage patients. I also had to visit multiple doctors, go to psychiatry appointments, individual therapy, family therapy. You get the picture. That's 20 plus hours of eating disorder recovery related appointments every single week, not to mention eating 6 times a day, which at the beginning of my recovery could take upwards of an hour to finish a snack or meal. That's a full-time job. After graduating from that program at the beginning of 8th grade, I slowly regained my life. I spent less time in therapy, less time at doctor's appointments, and more time making friends again. I was able to incorporate movement into my life. I made friends. I rebuilt who I was. One of the things I was taught in therapy was how to identify my top values. Things like love, transparency, creativity. And while my values fluctuate, one that has always been there is passion. I'm an incredibly passionate person. And after going through what I did, I have a burning passion to help others struggling with eating disorders and body dissatisfaction. Today, I'm going to give you a little crash course on eating disorders, anxiety, OCD, and body image. And by the end of my talk, you'll understand how they're all related and why the awareness of these disorders is important. Anxiety. It exists on a spectrum. We all have anxiety. It prevents us from doing dangerous things. For example, you wouldn't simply step out into the middle of the road without any regard for what's going on around you because, one, you would have uncomfortable bodily sensations. Maybe your heart's beating a little faster, you feel shaky or are getting sweaty. Two, you would have uncomfortable thoughts like, what if I get hurt? Or what if a car hits me? This is how your anxiety presents itself, and this is how it keeps you safe. But some people have higher levels of anxiety that cause them to be afraid of things that aren't actually dangerous. For example, someone with anorexia nervosa has an irrational fear of gaining weight. So to them, the idea of eating can feel like stepping into the middle of the road. And they will do absolutely everything in their power to prevent that outcome, no matter the repercussions. If you take a look at the line placed very conveniently above my head, you'll see that all the way to the left is someone with low to average anxiety. Hold on. And the farther right you get, we start to see more extreme anxiety or clinical anxiety-based disorders. Things like panic disorder, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, health anxiety, and eating disorders. Anxiety also goes hand in hand with OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, meaning that if somebody has an eating disorder, they also have extreme anxiety and OCD around food and or body image, as eating disorders are one of the farthest anxiety-based disorders to the left. What is an eating disorder? I'm pretty sure most of you have a fairly good idea of what an eating disorder is by now. But just in case, here is a concise definition. An eating disorder is an anxiety-based disorder that causes somebody to have consistent disturbances in their eating behaviors. It is a mental illness that causes someone to try and find control or safety in their eating behaviors. And while someone with, say, a broken bone can't just choose to heal, someone with an eating disorder can choose to recover. Not to say that it is a quick or easy decision, but with the correct help and support from loved ones, recovery is a choice that we get to make every single day because it is possible. There are currently 5 recognized eating disorders. The first being anorexia nervosa. Anorexia is a restrictive eating disorder that causes someone to extremely restrict their eating in one or multiple ways out of the fear of weight gain and the hope of weight loss. 2, bulimia nervosa. Bulimia is a form of food restriction through purging food. Forms of purging include things like self-induced vomiting, the overuse of laxatives and diuretics, excessive exercise, or fasting. 3, binge eating disorder, or BED. Binge eating disorder is an eating disorder where someone will eat 2 to 3 times that of what is considered normal for them in a 1 to 2 hour period. Someone with binge eating disorder may feel that they can't control their binge episodes. And those with binge eating disorder, unlike bulimia nervosa, do not use methods of purging after a binge. 4, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. Someone with ARFID extremely restricts how much and or what types of food they eat. But unlike anorexia nervosa, the fear that prompts this is caused by the fear of things like choking, vomiting, or the taste and texture of certain foods. Finally, other specified feeding and eating disorders, or OSFED. Someone with OSFED experiences extreme disturbances in their eating behaviors, just like any of the 4 eating disorders listed above, but they don't fit cleanly into any of the other 4 categories. What I just taught you is a taste of the presentation that I teach in schools. I believe that the more awareness there is about eating disorders, the less taboo the topic will be. And when people see their loved ones struggling with signs of disordered eating, they'll be able to recognize it and feel comfortable bringing it up. Because the earlier an eating disorder is addressed, the higher chance of recovery somebody has. Recovery is the process of unlearning everything that a person's disorder has taught them. A lot of the ideas that eating disorders latch onto these days are the perpetuated ones of diet culture. One that I hear often is that there are good and bad foods. I was taught in recovery how food doesn't have moral value. It just is. It's what we eat, and it keeps us alive and nourishes us. So I encourage you to go home today, and instead of thinking of things as good and bad, you just think of them as what they are. Because cake is just cake, and broccoli is just broccoli. I also try and use this same neutral language around body image. Relearning how to see my body, not for how it looks, but for what it does for me. I've created high quality, non-destructive, cling glass stickers that look like this. The image says, "Caution, images in mirror may be distorted due to societally accepted ideas of beauty." And this quote is one that really helps me when I'm struggling with my own body image. My initiative is to put these up on mirrors in public spaces, for locker rooms in schools, for changing rooms in different stores where you buy clothing. The name of the project is Society Lies, Choose to Be Alive, reflecting on the way that society's ideas of beauty are killing us. The stickers also link to a website that I created. It includes all the information that I taught you today, plus so much more. Quotes on eating disorders and body image, more in-depth descriptions of all the disorders, a more in-depth version of the story behind these stickers and behind my own story. If you have a community space that you'd be able to put these up, that would be absolutely incredible. And please come talk to me afterwards so we can get that all sorted out. For the future of Society Lies, Choose to Be Alive, I see it being international at some point. To be able to have these stickers up absolutely everywhere in different languages around the world would be a dream. And to take steps towards that, I'm finalizing getting my organization, FED, Fight Eating Disorders, as an official nonprofit. Everyone should be educated on eating disorders and their danger. Because the more we know, the more we can care. And the more we care, the more people you can help that are struggling. If you'd like to help me, you can come talk to me at school anytime. I'm very friendly. Or you can email or text me at this email and phone number, which is also linked at my website, fedfighteatingdisorders.org, under support. To reiterate, my name is Sabrina Elizabeth Avolio. I'm a 14-year-old freshman at Dos Pueblos High School, and I'm an advocate for eating disorder and body dissatisfaction awareness. Thank you for your time and attention today. Next up is Elaine Hugh with Time Travel. Sending love. Bye.
Have you ever wanted to time travel? Like, step into a portal and be transported to a foreign time. Raise your hand if this applies to you. I know it certainly does for me. Has there been anything that you've regretted that you wish to immediately turn back the clock? Again, raise your hand if you have. Well, a lot of people have had that thought, so there's plenty of research into the craziness of time. Personally, I've always been fascinated by time travel. I honestly used to spend hours laying in bed when I was like 10 thinking about it and how, if I could go back, change everything. It was honestly mostly small things like, oh, I said the sentence weird when talking to a friend and I should have said it differently. So the whole time ended up just being a regret session. Still, I am interested in time travel, even if it's mostly the science aspect of it now. Part of that interest was also sparked by Madeleine L'Engle's science fiction novels, especially Silting Tilting Planet, a novel that includes time travel to the distant past. But unfortunately for us, time travel to the past is most likely not possible. It's widely accepted that there are at least 4 dimensions: the X, Y, and Z dimensions that we're all used to, as well as another dimension of time. And the X, Y, Z dimensions come together to make space, and time being time, making space-time. And, well, the thing about time is that it's one-dimensional. Think of droplets of water dripping down from the ceiling. They don't suddenly go back the other direction. Time is like that. It can only move forwards. But there is good news for those of you who want to move into the future. You are certainly doing so now. Time is passing for you and me. All jokes aside, though, travel into the future at a faster pace is possible. Depending on the speed of whatever you're viewing relative to you, the time you'll perceive to their time will be different. That's because, according to Einstein's theory of special relativity, one thing that is constant is the speed of light, or the speed of information travel in any coordinates. Therefore, space and time have to be stretched in order for that speed of light to stay constant. There's also a handy equation for this dilation of time as well. It relates the speed at which you travel, the time you observe, and the time a stationary person would observe. It's delta t prime equals gamma times delta t. That may look like a lot of great characters to you, but it's really just being gamma as the rate of time dilation. If you look at this graph, if velocity is 0, then gamma ends up being just 1. The faster the speed, the greater the gamma. And as velocity approaches the speed of light, gamma approaches infinity. Therefore, you can reach any large gamma that you'd like as long as you travel fast enough in space. If, for example, you were to travel in a spaceship to the Andromeda Galaxy at the speed of what we managed to accelerate an electron to in the Large Hadron Collider, that means we need to go to a place approximately 2.5 million light years away at the speed of 99 point a bunch of nines percent the speed of light. We find gamma, the coefficient, to be 204,124. So since we're approximately traveling at the speed of light, we approximate the time people on Earth see as 2.5 million years. By plugging everything in, we get that this journey only takes you 12.2 years, according to you. The thing is, it takes a lot of energy to accelerate to those speeds. The Large Hadron Collider takes the equivalent of 1/3 of Geneva, Switzerland, to accelerate teeny, tiny particles. A person is significantly more massive than that. Imagine the amount of energy considering the fact that we have 10 to the 32 times more mass than an electron. That math may have just gone over your head, but the main moral of the story is travel into the future? Yes, that's possible. But the amount of energy it'd take to do that? Quite a lot. So is it feasible right now? No, not really. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In the example I just talked about, Earth would observe your journey to take 2.5 million years, while you would just take 12 years. Let's take a second to think of one thing that you're grateful for. Okay, now imagine if that thing was gone. By the time you got there, everyone you know will have been dead. You wouldn't have anyone left. No family, no friends, your home would be gone, places you see every day. These things don't last millions of years. It'd be amazing to last 200. Modern humans have only lasted for 300,000 years. In 2.5 million years, humanity might not even exist anymore. But heck, just being gone for 1 year could lead to drastic changes. Would you have believed in 2019 that in a year we wouldn't be able to go outside? It truly did feel like we were in a different world in 2019 versus 2021. And imagine if you went really, really fast. For example, if you were a photon traveling at the speed of light, you'd be going so fast that you'd reach the end of the universe in no time at all, literally. The speed of light is the fastest information can travel, so its time would dilate so much that it wouldn't have any time at all. Therefore, if you could travel at the speed of light, you would successfully reach the end of the universe in no time. And that's the end of the universe. If you somehow managed to do that, even more things would be gone. All the stars in the sky would have died out, turned into black holes, and those black holes would also have died. Well, that was pretty depressing. But the present isn't. Not really. As a species, humanity has achieved some pretty amazing things. Billions of art pieces, so much knowledge about physics and the universe, space travel, understanding of the climate, and so many hopes and dreams that people have thought of. That's honestly really amazing. Besides, even though we can't go back in time, we can still move forward to right our wrongs. Anyone can make a positive impact on the world. Everyone can do some pretty amazing things. And those nightly regret sessions? Yeah, I quit doing those. I'd like to say I'm a lot happier that I am now than I was before. It feels pretty crazy to say, but I'm happier as a teenager than I was as a preteen. Do I still mess up? Yeah, I've fumbled my words several times in this talk already. Do I need to travel back in time to change that? No, I do not. I probably won't even remember where I messed up. No one needs to be perfect. What's important is that we can grow from our mistakes. And unlike traveling back in time, it's 1, feasible, and 2, better for your health. So the next time you regret something, don't think about it. Do something about it. If you said something wrong and know it, apologize. Did something wrong on a math test? Do better next time. Well, also figure it out. Figure out why you did that wrong. Life moves on. Time goes on. Everyone has most likely heard about a growth mindset. But really, it's true. we have limited time. There are pretty good predictions for the end of the universe. What would be the better use of your time? Learning how to move on from mistakes or wallowing in your regrets? Raise your hand if you'd like to wallow in your regrets for the rest of a sad, lonely life. And who's to say you can't move past a mess up? If you're here, right now, today, you're doing great. You can't change the past, but you certainly can change the future. There's no way to change the direction of time, but everyone can change the direction of their future. Thank you. And I don't think I ever said this before, but my name is Elaine, and the next speaker will be Gabrielle Terzan.
Hello, everyone. I want to start with a small request. My topic today has some heavier themes that I will be touching upon. So I want to invite each of you to remember a happy moment, either from the past few days or a special moment you will always remember. For me, it's the good morning kisses from my dog. As I discuss some darker aspects of mental health, my own journey, and the journey for all of us for a brighter world, I encourage you to keep that moment in your mind to return to if you ever feel like this gets too much for you. Depression can create a profound sense of hopelessness. I know this all too well, having struggled with depression since I was 12, following a lifelong diagnosis of a very painful condition. I remember that pain of hopelessness all too well. I am fortunate I had someone who reignited the fight within me and encouraged me to seek help through therapy, and encouraged me to reclaim the hope I thought I had lost. But not everyone has that kind of support. Some walk through the darkest tunnels alone and can't see the light at the other end. Support networks are crucial for everyone, whether you are going through the best time of your life, as can be with many teenagers, or grappling with some of the most unimaginable pain. For me, I had friends who showed up for me and showed me compassion when I couldn't muster the energy to keep conversations going. For others, it might be a sibling stepping up for them, or a therapist advocating for what they need. These acts of compassion can be huge gestures, but often what we need in support is from daily actions that we take for granted. Small acts like listening to a friend when they open up, sending a quick check-in text, or sending a quick smile to your teacher can create ripples of happiness that share through your day. My own journey with depression was triggered by a lack of people listening and believing me. I talked about my medical condition briefly, but it's one that can't be seen through blood work and exams. For a year, I underwent testing and medications that left me feeling underwhelmed and unheard. When my symptoms didn't fit the typical boxes, or honestly, the stereotypes, people stopped listening. I was told I must be exaggerating, or worse, lying. I share this not to seek your sympathy, but to highlight a larger issue: the barriers surrounding mental health, its diagnosis, and treatments. It's not a simple math equation like time travel. It's filled with trial and error, with a constant checking and unchecking of boxes. When people like myself and those I've known don't fit into those boxes or stereotypes, professionals who should know better can even feel like they are asking questions that aren't so friendly. I want to give you an example from my own life. Have you ever heard, "Are you lying to me?" from a doctor or a therapist? It might surprise you. I've heard it from both. My doctor knew I couldn't use the bathroom alone, something any of us would be ashamed to admit, let alone to someone of the opposite gender. Yet, sitting at his office, he asked me with so much certainty, "Are you lying to me?" A mental health professional asked me the very same question as I sat in her office and told her I had attempted suicide over the school holiday. I was sitting in her office, crying until my tears had run dry. Yet her compassion had an undertone of skepticism. Unfortunately, this isn't just about my experience or the stories my friends have told me. It reflects a larger social issue about the barriers and stigma surrounding mental health. In a world that often feels overwhelming and too large for life, the expectations we place on ourselves can feel so much. For many in our generation, our mental health struggles are exacerbated by social media, academic pressure, and global crises generations before us haven't had to struggle with. Stigma can create a cycle of shame that can prevent individuals from seeking help, leaving them feeling isolated and hopeless. When people our age fear being judged, we are less likely to open up, especially about our own mental health. We might feel that our pain is unrelatable or that we are burdening others. The language we use in everyday conversation around mental health matters. Dismissive phrases only divide each and every one of us and make us feel like what we are experiencing ourselves isn't worth attention or, as I've called it myself, burdening. I share this with you to emphasize the scale of this crisis. It's important that we create an environment where mental health is openly discussed and treated with the seriousness it deserves. We all have a role to play in destroying the stigma our parents' and grandparents' generations gifted us. As many of you know, not every gift is meant to be accepted. Doing our part can be as simple as showing empathy to those around us. I'm asking you to look at how you approach different situations in your everyday life. To listen a little more, to look a little closer, and to care a little further. I got up in this stage to shine a light on the struggle people with mental health issues have been facing. I'm not telling you to do the same, to get up on the stage, share your story, putting you in the spotlight. But I asked you to help those who have walked through a dark tunnel like me or who might be walking through one right now. We don't have to accept the gift of shame and stigma that those before us have gave us. We can create a world of acceptance and compassion and help others with their struggles. Change and creation isn't one big grand effort by one person. It starts with small acts of effort from each and every one of us. Each interaction we have has the power to change another person. In the words of Paul Shakespeare, as one person, I cannot change the world, but I can change the world of one other person. Imagine how different our world could be if we showed empathy, compassion, and listened to one another. Our world could be that much brighter. I'm not asking you to be a hero to the whole world, but to be a little more heroic each day. Maybe that's helping your sick mom by unloading the groceries from the car, cooking a meal for your dad, or helping your little sister or brother with their homework. To put just a little more thought behind each and every one of your actions. Watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. This isn't just a warning we tell elementary school kids or something on a poster. This is a prophecy we can fulfill. If we can think compassionately, we can speak it. If we can speak compassionately, we can act on it. Imagine if everyone in this room left with one thought of how to help another person. That's all it takes to change the world. To listen a little more, to look a little closer, and to care a little further. Thank you. I'm Gabrielle Terzian. Please welcome up Tyler McCutcheon.
Hello, my name is Tyler McCutcheon, owner and creator of Golden Waste Clothing. Oh. Ever since I was young, I always felt the need to create, whether that be drawings, plays, haunted houses in my backyard, or iMovies. I needed a way to express myself and show what I was thinking. And so when COVID hit in 2020, much of my daily routine was revolved around food and screens, and I found myself lacking the creative stimulation that my brain craved. And so, out of an act of desperation for some form of activity, I picked up my Powell Peralta skateboard and skated around my block. While skating, I ran into some friends who were also skating, and over the next couple of months, I joined multiple different skate groups, and I was skating almost daily. I had finally found my people. As someone who didn't play sports or video games, I often struggled to find people I clicked with, since these tended to be the main ways that people my age connected. And despite its poor reputation, to me, skateboarding has been one of the most kind and accepting and artistic communities I know. I took a break from skating in 7th grade because of lack of time. But once my time was free again in the summer, I was once again skating with my friends almost daily at Skaters Point, which is a skate park by the pier. I was immersed in skate culture, and it's this that inspired my brand. I remember it was the same scorching summer going into 8th grade when I pulled out my dad's sweat-stained white t-shirt, my sketchbook, and some paint supplies. I had earlier that month drawn some designs for a brand concept that I was creating called Golden Waste. and you can see some of the designs there. And so with my ideas in mind and my paintbrush in hand, I created the first ever Golden Waste t-shirt. And you can tell it's not that impressive, but this taught me a lot about how to get started with creative projects and endeavors. Even if you don't have a perfect idea of what you want to do or make, doesn't mean you shouldn't create. The best way to get started is just to jump in and be present with your ideas when they're flowing. Next thing I know, I'm in my 8th grade math class, and I'm bored out of my mind. I had finished all of my schoolwork and was kind of just sitting there. So I did what any kid my age would do, and I opened Photoshop to mess around. I took this photo of one of my friends, and I had the great idea to put it on a missing poster. On that missing poster, I defaced it with my tag, and I put some drawings on it. At lunch, I printed originally around 10 to 15 of them and went and put them on teachers' doors for all the students to see. And while faculty didn't really find this funny and took them down almost instantly, students thought it was great. And next thing I know, I'm seeing social media posts all over on Snapchat stories. And so I thought to myself, how can I make this something bigger? So I printed hundreds of them. I even put it on a t-shirt, which is still available on my website today. All of that to say, I was once again in the middle of a new culture and community, graffiti. And despite its poor reputation again, graffiti is actually an incredibly artistic community. I think a lot of people consider it just to be immature or destructive for the sake of destruction. I, however, disagree. As I dove deeper into the community, both online and locally, I actually found that there were rules and traditions and artistic expressions dating back from over 70 years ago. I was once again inspired. And I argue that if I had never learned about skating or graffiti, golden waste wouldn't be a thing. If I hadn't gone and explored these different aspects of life and cultures, I could have never viewed them as influence. We as humans have been given the incredible skill to communicate. And sure, words can be pretty powerful, but there are other ways. I find it amazing that we're able to express ourselves using what are essentially just millions of waves and particles and movements. Pink Floyd said, "All you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be." And I'm sure we've all listened to an album or watched a movie that's really touched us or inspired us in some way or brought us into the story. And I find this incredible. I think the reason we often react to media the way we do is because it reflects aspects of our own lives. This is the beauty of the human experience, You can mix sounds and colors and shapes in any way, but it really takes a mind shaped by life's journeys to understand how you should react or feel to that piece of media. And this is why I say that we as humans need to get out and experience as much as possible. It shapes our art, our media, and even our everyday interactions as humans. And I know this is a stretch, but I would even argue that living itself could be considered an art experience. And we are just as important to an art piece as the paint or the t-shirt being printed on. This also means that art is all around us daily. So take, for example, Virgil Abloh and how he found the inspiration for his brand's Off-White's main logo. He was just sitting, waiting, bored, in the Glasgow airport, waiting for his plane, when he started to take notice of some of the scenery that was around him. It's incredible what can happen when we are more present and aware of our thoughts and ideas. Much of my work for Golden Waste has also been inspired by everyday objects and experiences. For example, my blurred description tee. I remember one day I saw a QR code, and what on any other day might have just been a simple advertisement suddenly felt way more significant. I saw it as a portal of sorts into the digital world, and it's something that we use almost daily, and yet it's so out of mind to us. Another example is my moolah tee. It's just a defaced dollar bill, but I think it's crazy how we handle and use money every single day, and yet we don't take the time to acknowledge that all of our modern day society is built around this green piece of paper. Things like these have acted as an outlet for me. I find creativity is a crucial way for me to express myself and blow off some steam sometimes. And as on the nose and unoriginal as this is gonna sound, I truly and genuinely believe that anyone who wants to create can if they are passionate enough. Take, for example, my earlier tea about just painting on the white t-shirt, right? It doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate for it to be meaningful. Just start and jump in when you find yourself in a flow, and you can iron out the wrinkles later. I remember when I started the brand, I had a lot of self-doubt, mostly because of my age. You guys can probably relate to this, but I think we live in an age superiority culture, and people our age's opinion are often neglected. And so this is why I want to encourage all of you who are listening, this kind of breaks its own rule, but to stop listening and relying on other people. This concept was actually given to me by my mother. Make your own content. Create your own opportunities, she used to always say. But I do understand that it is difficult to do this type of thing alone. And so, this brings me to my next idea. We create experiences together. It's about the vibe that we share, said Travis Scott. On August 4th of this year, I had one of the most inspiring photo shoots ever. I had just finished the technical aspects of my newest collection. This collection marked the second anniversary of my brand and was inspired by adolescence, nostalgia, and early 2010s LA streetwear. The shoot took place at an abandoned, graffiti-ridden building at Devereaux Beach. This spot is a Santa Barbara icon. It's one of the best surfing spots nearby, and it's right in IV, a community full of art, youth, and style. And while all of the shoots I do have some type of meaning to me, this one was especially notable. And let me tell you why. Take a look at the people who are involved. You had me, a passionate creative, Micah and Caleb, 2 varsity football players, Violet Murray, a talented cheerleader, and John Duffy, a wonderkind soccer player, with Aston Smith, a freelance photographer and journalist, taking photos. You had 6 different people from all different walks of lives, with various interests and personalities coming together to create something bigger than themselves. I just want to say, in what other setting does this happen? This is what is so special about creative collaboration. It has the ability to create bonds and relationships that couldn't have otherwise been achieved. To wrap up all I've said today, creativity is an incredibly powerful tool that can allow us to be our genuine selves and build relationships and communities that likely wouldn't have otherwise been achieved. And if there were 3 things that I would want to suggest to those of you who want to start creating, they would be: 1, get out and explore. Find new and intriguing communities that can teach you or inspire you in some way. Art reflects life, so go live one. 2, create your own place for self-expression. Share your voice, everybody has a unique voice. And if you have something you want to say, but just can't find a place to say it, why not make your own? Who knows? Maybe you could be the thing that inspires someone else's work. 3, collaborate, connect, and create with others. Creative collaboration is so crucial and important that almost everything around us is built on it. Take, for example, this auditorium, or this school, or this event. Together, we can create, and connected, we can empower. Thank you. Next up, giving a speech is going to be Amelia Kelly, so let's give her a round of applause.
Lazy. When you need a break, you can't take one because otherwise you aren't working hard enough. You're being selfish. You can't step away from your commitments because others are depending on you. Why are you so weak? You cannot falter under the weight of any pressure you feel because you should be able to handle it. For most teenagers I know, including myself, these are some of the thoughts that run through my mind and our minds when what we really feel is exhausted and hopeless. These thoughts persist because that is the culture we live in. Those are the expectations placed on us by others. Why should we be allowed a break when other generations have pushed through this time in their life and made it look easy? But just for a moment, consider with me that our generation is dealing with unprecedented experiences that aren't easy to deal with, and frankly, shouldn't be treated as if they are. Every student in this room is at least one grade younger than the survivors of the Sandy Hook school shooting, meaning that our entire education has been haunted by the idea that we could be shot just for showing up to school on any given day. We went through a global pandemic during some of our most formative years, and most of us spent it chronically online, which is an entirely different landscape of social interaction that is completely new to humans in the last 20 or so years. The expectations facing us in academics are taxing. All we hear is that our school careers are defined by getting into a top college because it's the only way to have a successful future. But those top colleges are harder than ever to get into, and they'll likely put us in debt for the rest of our lives if we do get in. All of us grew up in politically unprecedented times, meaning that we were forced to figure out who we were before our frontal lobes had even developed. And then we had to simplify that understanding of ourselves to fit into one side of any given issue. When examining the context of our lives, it makes complete sense that we feel perpetually overwhelmed, regardless of how otherwise privileged our lives have been. And trust me, I would and could continue to list examples, but that's not what I'm here to do today. What I am here to do is to say that operating under the belief that we are lazy or selfish or weak is counterproductive, because sometimes your body and your mind demand a break, and they won't work properly until they get it. My name is Amelia Kelly, and I'm a senior at Alta Vista Middle College, and I wanted to talk to you today about burnout, which is a term you've likely heard before. Burnout is what happens when life becomes too much. Everyday chores, school, work, your social life, dealing with your family, taking basic care of yourself, it all piles up. And all of a sudden, it's too much to handle. Everyone will experience burnout in their lives because it isn't always brought on by extreme stress or responsibility or even the very worst moments of your life. It comes and goes in different seasons of your life for different reasons. Burnout is simply your mind and body asking you to take a step back and breathe again before you damage yourself further. Most research related to burnout is done on adults, and the research that does exist for teenagers is focused on academic burnout, which is a huge issue and a big part of what I'm talking about today. But it is not everything, because we are not only students, we are athletes, artists, we volunteer regularly, are active in the workforce, we help take care of our families, we have complex social experiences. We are people with multidimensional lives and responsibilities. I used to experience burnout as a burning match. The match was struck when the pressure of all the expectations I had placed on myself created too much friction. It felt as though I was literally on fire with feelings of exhaustion, hopelessness, and resentment. But I was trying to act like I wasn't. I kept doing the same things, putting the same pressure on myself without putting out that flame. And when you don't blow out the flame, it continues to consume. For me, more recently, burnout has changed from an experience of constant productivity in hopes of it disappearing into one of destruction. The fire no longer had fuel on just the match, my body and my mind, and it wanted to spread to the rest of my life as thoughts of giving up stoked the flames. So the fire turned to the rest of my life, my relationships, my responsibilities, my day-to-day actions, and it consumed it all in the flames. I gave up after so long of hoping the flames would go away on their own, and was eventually left with the charred ashes of my life as I had known it. Everyone experiences burnout differently and has their own story with it. So what do we do, right? As individuals and as a community, what can we do to fix this issue we know exists? We know that teenagers are characteristically overstressed and overtired, but it doesn't have to be that way. What do we do to help each other? Well, there is no cure for burnout, and nothing will work for everyone, because we each have our own individual experiences with burnout. But I have a few ideas, and it's some advice that I needed myself. So first, I want you to let yourself feel burnt out. If the match has been struck, don't try to make it worse, but don't try to fix it either. Just feel it for a moment. This is a completely normal season of your life to find yourself in. Again, everyone goes through it. Sometimes acknowledging the symptoms of your body and your mind can make you realize that this experience isn't a problem that needs solving necessarily, but a sign that you need to let yourself be for a little bit. And that is enough. Once you've let yourself actively experience burnout, it's time to figure out why you are feeling this. Look at your life, everything that causes you stress or takes up time in your week, and what takes up your energy every day. What relationships, commitments, responsibilities, mindsets, and ideas and influences in your life are creating unnecessary or simply negative pressure? What created that friction in the first place to start that flame? By figuring out what the root of the issue is, often a solution can show itself, but it requires introspection and objective examination of your life as a whole. This can be a difficult step. Lean on others. Use advice from those around you, those who know you the best, because they have a perspective that you don't. We are blinded by our own experiences and our own thoughts and our self-centeredness. We need to use advice from others. Lastly is what I believe to be the most important step. After a long period of time, it isn't productive to sit with the burnout or try to figure out what caused it. You have to start making the change for yourself. Pretty soon, most of us will go off to college or will enter a career and won't have our parents telling us to wake up in the morning, our teachers telling us to get our homework done, or our friends reminding us to have a bit of fun. We have to start taking charge of taking care of ourselves, because soon we won't have the guarantee of a fire extinguisher waiting nearby to help us if things take a turn for the worst. This means that even while feeling exhausted and hopeless, we have to begin to do the hard things so that we can save ourselves. Some of us need to stop procrastinating on our schoolwork and making excuses. We need to start keeping our commitments and upholding our responsibilities. Some of us need to take a step back from those responsibilities that we are upholding and spend more time with friends. We need to sleep more, get some exercise, or simply relax for a little bit. It'll be hard, whatever you do, and you may feel unproductive. But frankly, if you know it's what you need, then you should do it, no matter how hard it is. Remember that coming out of burnout is going to feel just as difficult as the experience itself, but it'll be worth it. It will be worth it. And this requires it'll be worth it. And taking those risks of stepping back or stepping up will be worth it in the long run. If you take away anything from what I tell you today, let it be this. Burnout is an experience that is universal, but it doesn't make it less difficult. So have genuine conversations about it, because connection will bring us better solutions. Remember to take charge of your own life and start doing the hard things if it's what you really need to put out that fire before it burns you up. Thank you for having me. Take care of yourself and others.
All right. All right, that was our last TED Talk of the day. Can we please have another round of applause for all of our speakers?
All right, and before you all stand up to leave, if you could still sit down, we just have a couple more announcements to make. Hey, the bell hasn't rung yet. Okay, good.
We would also like to thank a couple people for helping out with this. That includes the DPNews team, Mr. Dent and Mr. Keynes, as well as the theater crew and Miss Betson for helping us with all of our tech and live streaming. We'd like to thank leadership for volunteering to be our ushers today, and of course the DP admin team for their support in organizing this event.
Now, we hope that if you take anything from this event, it's that you can take something back to your own life to impact your community or just your own life. So thank you all for coming out today. And TEDx would love your feedback about how this event went. So if everybody could scan the QR code that is on the screen. There we go. And you can put your email there. But thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you, teachers, for signing up and taking time out of your classes. Okay.
And you're all excused to lunch.